Boo! Did I scare you? That's right, we're talking about Spook today. It's a custom integration for Home Assistant written by Frank. And Spook is not your homie. As always, I like to go through the written documentation provided by the author of an add-on or a thing or an integration, and this is no different. This is Spook, written by Frank. I really hope I've been pronouncing that right all these years. Anyway, Spook is a powerful toolbox for Home Assistant. It is not your homie. So this is Frank's one and only custom integration for Home Assistant. It's a little pet project that he has written and that he develops in his spare time. And what its aim is to provide features and enhancements to Home Assistant that aren't necessarily mainstream or will be provided in the mainstream Home Assistant install. It's interesting. He basically tells you not to use this. If you would ever ask me if you should use Spook, I would say no. Using the least amount of custom integrations is always preferred. And that's basically what he's saying. This is a custom integration. The fewer you use, the more likely you are to have no problems with your Home Assistant instance. So anyway, he says slowly becoming a scary, powerful toolbox for Home Assistant. If you are comfortable using custom integrations, then this Spook might be good for you. So we're going to go through installing Spook after we talk about it a little bit more. And then I'm going to put it on my production Home Assistant instance and just see what it finds, because I haven't installed it anywhere but my developer or development system. And we'll see what happens. See if something gets really scary. So this is what Spook is. And let's start from what he says here. Spook is not supported by the Home Assistant project. It is a custom integration written by Frank for fun and not supported. It's provided as is without any warranty or support and has a very restrictive license. You can read the entire restrictive license. It is a passive aggressive license and has all the stuff here. It's quite long. I'm not going to read all of this, but you can go to the website and you can figure it out for yourself. The website, of course, will be linked down below. If you experience issues with the integration or because of the integration, he says, please go cry a lot on your own. After ignoring the warning, you will not be provided with a tissue to dry up your tears when you're crying in a fetal position under your desk. You have been warned. I don't think it's as bad as he's making it out to be. Frank writes a lot of things. He does a lot of work with Home Assistant. He actually is a full-time Nabu Casa employee working on Home Assistant. So he's not going to throw something out there that's going to completely destroy it. But again, as is, if you break something, go cry on your own and all that stuff. All right. Now that we've talked about that, what does it do? There's a lot of stuff that is never going to be put into the Home Assistant mainstream project. And so what this Spook does is it aims to fill some of those gaps. There's some reasons for this. If it's just too random, out of scope, not matching the philosophy, violates architectural design, early development, experimental, explorative, or just useless. Spook doesn't care. Again, he's nobody's homie. So maybe that one feature you wanted in Home Assistant is in this toolbox provided by Spook. Again, all stuff in here is not part of Home Assistant, at least not yet, for a reason. Don't expect it to work, be supported, or to be a good idea. All that said, Spook is a scary, powerful toolbox. And I keep saying this, Spook is not your homie. So what do you get? Spook is going to add some new features to existing services in your automations and scripts. It creates new entities. It allows you to monitor your Home Assistant cloud connections, including your connections back to the big box smart home speaker makers. And it also floats around in your Home Assistant, kind of like an APT for you in the security world. And it finds potential issues along the way. It will tell you. All that stuff shows up in the repairs dashboard. It basically extends your Home Assistant instance with a huge set of scary, powerful tools. All right, so if you're scared and you're like, oh, heck no, and you're out, then that's fine. Using the least amount of custom integrations is always the best way to go. So if this makes you uncomfortable, don't use Spook. He says it doesn't bite. It doesn't deliberately break your Home Assistant system. It's just not supported. So you can learn more about the background and history of Spook to learn more about what it is, and you can go to the frequently asked questions page. So if we just quickly look at the background, created, of course, by Frank, as I mentioned, on February 23rd of 2023. He is a Home Assistant enthusiast and has been in the community since 2016. You might have caught a few of his live streams in the past. He is a member of the Home Assistant Project and has worked on many Home Assistant projects since then. And in 2019, he was hired by Nabu Casa to work full-time. Frank reviews gazillions, he says many, but gazillions of contributions and is heavily involved in the architectural design. Some of those things that the community wants aren't going to happen for various reasons. So Frank felt the need to fill this gap and started working on a solution, and there was Spook. Again, it's a custom integration and all this stuff we talked about. Why the name Spook? Frank is Dutch and grew up with Casper, the friendly ghost. I can't say that part. And Spook is the Dutch word for ghost. Casper is scary at first sight, but you get to like him. It seems fitting for a custom integration that might seem scary, but then you learn to love Spook, and it does all kinds of fun stuff for you. Not Your Homie is a reference to the live streams he used to do. He called his viewers my Home Assistant homies, or just homies, and referring to you, the Home Assistant user, as its friend, its homie. However, Spook is not your homie. He is a ghost, a spooky thing. He's supposed to make you think a little bit about what you are doing before you use it. Anyway, you can read a little bit more about that. Here are the goals of Spook. It aims to add new services to existing integrations, providing control of features you can use, inject new features into existing services, add extra new entities, giving you more data points to monitor and control, and find and raise issues on your repairs dashboard for things that are found in Home Assistant, and more. I'm sure he'll continue to develop this as it goes along. Spook will use almost any trick in the book to get the job done. It uses undocumented features, private APIs, monkey patching, workarounds. It uses whatever it takes, kind of like those hackers and those APTs. While some features are not in Home Assistant for a reason, you might be opinionated differently. And there are those of you that are opinionated differently. Spook doesn't care. He isn't here to judge or be the homie of anyone. And who knows, some features may turn out to be great after all, and those might end up in Home Assistant one day. So that is Spook, the background, back to the license page. And then here we go. I am in, how do I install it? So we're going to go through and install Home Assistant. We're going to install Spook in Home Assistant. It's very easy. It is an HACS, or Home Assistant Community Store installation. So all you need to do is have HACS installed. And if you don't, you should. There are a lot of useful integrations and front-end front-end things in HACS. I have a video on installing HACS if you're not familiar with that. So what we need to do is we need to go over to my Home Assistant instance now, and we're actually going to go to HACS, and we're going to install our friend Spook. And I jumped the gun here. Let me go back. You want to make sure that you're selecting integrations here. So that's where we're going to go, is integrations. And then we are going to explore and download repositories button in the bottom right corner. And then we're going to search for Spook. So let me get myself out of the way. Here's the explore and download repositories button. And we're going to click on Spook, or type Spook. And then we're going to click on Spook. Remember, Spook is not your homie. And then it brings up the Spook page. And then once you're ready to go, just download it. And then you just click on download right here. And away we go. Sip of coffee while we wait. Today's coffee is brought to you by Jet Fuel. That is my choice of brew for today. Who makes Jet Fuel? I don't remember. I'm not sponsored anyway. So what? Okay, there it is. It's installed now. Next step is to go through here, and we've downloaded it. Now we need to select the settings from the sidebar and we need to restart Home Assistant. So once you install an integration via HACS, you need to restart Home Assistant. And it tells you here, you have one integration for which a restart is required. So we're going to navigate to the restart page. We're going to click the restart button. And if I restart with my alarm enabled, it's going to set the alarm off. So let me disable my alarm. Okay. Now let's restart Home Assistant. You can do a quick reload or a restart. You want the full restart in this case. So let's do it. And we'll be back after the restart. Oh, more buttons. Yes. Now we'll be back after the restart. Okay, Home Assistant has started, as you saw right there. Next up, we need to actually activate this integration we just created in HACS. So I'm going to use the shortcut here with the C key, go to my integrations section, and I'm going to click on add integration down here. And we're going to search for Spook. If you don't see this, you need to refresh your browser, like a hard refresh, clear your cache, something like that. Also, if after that you don't see it, then you didn't install the HACS integration properly or something didn't go right. Anyway, it's here. Click on it. And then here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Did you read the README? Did you read the license? Are you really sure? Once you click this button, Spook's going to start floating around your system. And remember, he's not your homie. Here we go. I'm going to submit it because I'm a rebel. Uh-oh. In order for Spook to finish setting up, we need to restart Home Assistant. Again. Okay, well, that's fine. Makes sense. I restart Home Assistant 20 times a day when I'm doing something anyway. No big deal. So I'm going to restart it now. And remember, it's created the configuration for not your homie. And now we've lost our connection and we will come back after this restart is completed. All right. See you in a minute. Okay. Spook has been installed. Spook is now floating around. And oddly enough, I don't feel any differently. I expected to feel something. Nothing at all. Now what? I should say something before I go any farther. If you don't have a backup of your Home Assistant system, shame on you. If you have a backup, but you haven't looked to make sure it's backing up, or an automated backup, and you haven't checked it in a long time, kind of shame on you. Make sure that you have a backup of your complete Home Assistant instance before you do something like install Spook, because you got to remember, he's not your homie. Spook is now floating around inside my Home Assistant instance. If Spook goes in there and he blows something up because he gets mad at me one day, I got a backup. I'm just going to restore back to when I didn't have the homie in there, the non-homie in there, right? Remember that. Back it up. Check your backups. Make sure they actually exist. All right, now what? I said that. Let's see what we can do with this Spook thing. Using Spook in Home Assistant. Now that you've installed it, you can start using it. It's really hard to explain what Spook does because, well, it's hard, and that means it'll be hard for me to explain what it does. We're just going to see what it did. Since it extends the Home Assistant functionality, everything you already know about Home Assistant already or still applies. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to go over to the Repair Center. I'm going to see if it found anything in my Repair Center I hope that's not. Oh, good golly. Yep. We got some issues here. Most of these are discovered by, well, all of these, except for this top one, are discovered by Spook. So Spook is already floating around, and it's telling me it's got unknown group members in cameras, unknown group members in scripts. So essentially, I have a lot of groups that have unknown things in it. So I need to go into my groups and fix all of that. Unknown source deck lights, unknown source front porch lights. If I click on one of these, it tells me Spook has found a ghost in your switch as X helpers. While floating around, Spook crossed path with the following helper, deck lights. The helper has a source switch entity unknown to Home Assistant, so it doesn't know what switch deck lights JS is. To fix this error, edit the helper and adjust the source entity or remove the helper and restart Home Assistant. courtesy of Spook, not your homie. So already Spook has discovered a whole bunch of things in my Home Assistant instance that I need to figure out. This is stuff, by the way, that I have always wanted to know about. I do a lot of things like these videos where I change things in my Home Assistant instance. Plus, I moved to a new house. And because of that, I have renamed or moved or not installed certain things that were in the old house, but I've never cleaned up my Home Assistant instance. Also didn't know how many things were really messed up. So with our Spook, not your homie friend, well, he's not your homie, so he's not your friend. Anyway, with Spook, I now know that I have a whole bunch of issues here that I need to clean up. And these are things that haven't actually broken my Home Assistant. They're just cleanup items that need to be taken care of. So that's one big thing that Spook has already found in my instance. And it tells you how to fix it, just like the Repair Center stuff does. Services are a common way to control Home Assistant. We know that. Most of the actions you use in automation are by calling services. Spook adds new features to existing services that you can use in your automations and scripts. It also adds new ones. So Spook will show himself on each of the services so you can identify which ones are his. So if I go to my services page or developer tools and I look at services, if I just drop this drop down list and I start looking through all of the services available here, here is a little ghosty, hard to see on the video, but there is a Spook created action or service. Any more? Surely there's got to be more. Look for your little ghost friend on your services. Yep. So here's one. Home Assistant, add a device to an area, add an entity to an area, create an area, delete all orphaned entities. So that's an interesting one. Like I mentioned in the Repair Center, it shows a lot of things that aren't correct. I also have a lot of entities that I've gotten rid of or not used in a long time. So I could call this newly created service call that was added by Spook and delete all the orphan entities. Again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I'll think about that. Delete an area, a whole bunch of disabled devices, entities, all kinds of new stuff here. So there are a bunch of things you can do with scripts now, or new service calls you can do in your automations with Spook. If you like to explore all of those, Spook provides if you like to explore all available services Spook provides and play with them from the comfort of your instance, you can use this button here, to open your Home Assistant instance and show your service developer tools. Scroll through the list available and you'll notice Spook being there. That's what I just did. Alternatively, you can take a look at our services reference page. Now, this is all the stuff here that Spook can do. And by the way, I will mention the documentation here is amazing. This whole sidebar is full of things that you can do with Spook, or how to use Spook, or what Spook is, and all of this stuff here. So features, core extensions, enhanced integrations, helpers, it's all in here. So when you are done with this video, you should read through the entire Spook stuff, because I'm not going to cover it all, make the video exceptionally long, which it's already getting there. Spook adds new devices and entities to your Home Assistant instance, giving you more data points. So one thing that it has added is the Home Assistant Cloud. So let me figure out how to get there. You can find most devices and entities Spook provides on the Spook integration page. So if I go back to my integrations in Home Assistant and I look at the Spook integration page, I should see all of the things that it provides. Here are all the new entities that Spook has provided, I believe. Yep, integration Spook. And then you can come over here and look at two devices. Here's one called Home Assistant. We're discovering this together, by the way. I haven't seen this on my my production system yet. Where's the cloud thing? I saw that on my other one. I want to figure out how to view the Home Assistant Cloud. So I can show you that. Let's see here. See, this is an example of that. It tells you the state of all of your stuff. Device info. Maybe it's actually Spook. Here's some interesting things. If you look at the repairs entity created by Spook, you have, you can ignore all, unignore all, which is an interesting thing. Unignore all repairs, ignore all repairs. And then you have 33 active issues, 0 ignored, and 33 total. You can actually add this to the dashboard, although I don't know why you would, because you already have a repair center. And then here's Spook. Not sure why it's not showing me the cloud. I'm sure I'm doing this wrong. Anyway, you can see the cloud stuff. You can use the My Home Assistant button below to open your Home Assistant instance and show the Spook integration page. When I click on that, what's it going to take me to? This may or may not work. Let's try it. Let's see if that works. Yeah. It does not, because I'm not SSL based. Yeah. Oh, 3 devices now. Home Assistant Cloud. Well, that's interesting. Well, this is what I was looking for. So now you have all of your configuration for your Home Assistant Cloud. You can actually automate the status of these things. Google Assistant state reporting, Alexa state reporting. I just triggered everyone's speaker. And then Google Assistant, you can turn them on and off. You can do state reporting. And then I guess this is the Nabu Casa stuff here. So all that's available in Spook now. And that's what I was trying to show you. Okay, what else? Features, again, you can go through all of this stuff here. Installing usage feature support. Core extensions extends the functionality of Home Assistant. Enhanced integrations. There are plugins. They come in all sorts of type. Most commonly are the ones that are connect to device or service, but they're more like helpers. Spook enhances the following Home Assistant integrations by sprinkling some ectoplasmic goodness on top of them. If you want to know what ectoplasm is, there it is. It may add new services, entities, devices, or even replace and extend existing ones. So enhanced integrations, automations, and it, let's see, non-working automations are a source of frustration. Let's see, Spook enhances the automation integration of Home Assistant by raising repair issues in case it detects something wrong with an automation. And then automations are inspected for the use of areas. If an automation is targeting an area in one of its calls that does not exist, Spook raises a repair issue. There are always known limitations. Templates and automations are not evaluated by Spook. So any service calls that target areas dynamically using a template will not be considered by Spook. That's the one area Spook is blocked from. Spook, remember, he's not your homie. Anyway, he's blocked from templates. You'll see this limitation in a lot of areas under here. It looks like it adds new things. It does enhancements. So if we, I mean, good golly, I'm not going to read through all these. Automations, blueprints, dashboards. A dashboard in Home Assistant, we know what that is. While Spook floating around, it will raise repair issues if it found something that's not right. So dashboards are inspected for use of entities. If a dashboard uses an entity ID in one of its cards that does not exist, Spook raises a repair issue. The repair issues raised will contain the name of the dashboard and the entity ID that is referenced. There is a lot of stuff that Spook does that will alert you in the repair center. And we've seen what it does with groups. Home Assistant Cloud. What does it do here? Spook adds a single new device with entities for this integration to your Home Assistant. So it allows you to fully disable your instance with this person, this thing. It gives you state reporting. It allows you to disable remote access from the web, which is your Nabu Casa stuff. Let's see. So here's some use cases. Disable remote access when you are home using an automation and automatically enable it when you leave your home. Disable Alexa integration when you are not using an automation or not at home. Sorry if I triggered that again. Disable the assistant here when you are not at home using an automation. So you can read through all of this stuff here. What else do I want to talk about? Let's look at scripts, unknown reference devices. So the repair issues again will be raised if there's an unknown device. Looks for entities when entity ID does not exist. Same thing. All of this is pretty similar. Again, go through all of this. And then we have helpers. We have an inverse helper that didn't exist before that's now available. So you can make an off become an on, or an on become an off, basically turn the world upside down. So this is helpful if you have a switch or binary sensor in a non-standard way, or when the manufacturer of a device has decided to use the opposite logic for the switch or binary sensor, and they do exist. It not just inverts the state of the source entity, but also does all service calls in reverse. So if you have an automation to turn on a switch, it will instead call the turn off service on the inverted switch. So it also used to invert the behavior of a switch or binary sensor or entity. This is really easy and fully done via the Home Assistant unit, blah, blah, blah. And it tells you how to do that stuff here. Services, we talked about services, create an area, delete an area, and there's a whole list over here. I mean, just tons of stuff. I think some of the most helpful areas are going to be the repair center. It's going to be adding service calls that you didn't have before. And then just a general awareness of how well your Home Assistant instance is running, and whether it's available via the cloud or not, or whether your smart speakers can access it, and whether the connection to those are available or working. So those are some of the biggest things I see in Spook. I would love to go through every bit of this and do stuff, but there's just a lot here. So make sure you play around with Spook, get it installed. Right now, everything in my Home Assistant instance is working as it did before. Spook did not break anything. Spook is not designed to break anything. He's just not your homie. Just keep that in mind. If you have questions about this whole Spook thing, let me know. Or, of course, let Frank know as well, because he's the author. So let me see if there's anything else I want to talk about here. We talked about the core extensions. By the way, core extensions are like turbo cartridge for your Commodore 64, for those of you that remember that. Spook adds functionality to the very core of Home Assistant. This is not the same as integrations, but it makes those integrations run at the next level, or level up, as he says here. Integration management, device management. You can get a kind of an overview here. Enable, disable that one integration on the fly. Now, this is interesting. You can actually turn off integrations via, I guess, service calls. So you click on Learn More here. Disable or enable an integration. So, for example, I use Tasmo Admin when I want to do something with Tasmota stuff, but I don't use it on a regular basis. So I can enable or disable that one as I need it via program calls if I'm doing something else. Device management programmatically enable, disable any device in Home Assistant using service calls. I should have started with this at the beginning of the video. Apologies for doing it at the end here, because it's nice and concise and tells you what it's doing. Entity management, automate controlling your entities using services, hide, unhide, enable, disable, and even delete all orphan entities in all in one go. And every one of these has a little bit more information and specifics on how you do this stuff. Areas management, make your areas fully dynamic by adding, removing devices and any entities to them using services. You can even dynamically create completely new areas on the fly. We talked about devices and entities. It adds a bunch of devices and entities that provide information and controls on over the internals of Home Assistant. Disabling devices, enabling devices, and all that's over here as well. And what else do we have here? Miscellaneous. We have services. The following miscellaneous services are added. Restart. Restarts Home Assistant. Spook extends the existing restart service with a force option to force Home Assistant to restart immediately, ignoring all safety guards. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Restarting Home Assistant will interrupt all running automation scripts and integration. It is recommended to use this service only when necessary. So never unless you really, 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 really need it. When enabling force, Home Assistant will restart immediately, ignoring all safety. This means it will ignore everything. It will not check your configuration. It will even interrupt database migrations and just kill Home Assistant to restart as fast as possible. What is that, a kill-9 on Linux? Kill-15? Kill-1000? This is not recommended and should only be used when absolutely necessary. All right. I think that covers it. I think I've talked enough. There are all kinds of things that you can go through. Read the documentation on here. For me, again, like I said a minute ago, This is going to be most useful for finding things to help me clean up my Home Assistant instance and monitor my connection to the various smart speaker systems and the cloud, the Nabu Casa, so that I know if something has happened where I don't have a connection anymore. And then some of these enhancements I'll try out. Cleaning up orphan entities will be a big one. So cleanup of my Home Assistant, maintenance of my Home Assistant instance, monitoring of specific things, and then just the ability to extend some of the service calls that I already use on a regular basis. All right. Holy cow, this video might be 30 minutes long. May have to edit some of this down. When you see this, it might be shorter than 30 minutes, but the recording is long. All right, thanks for watching. Let me get out of here so that I'm not wasting any more of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.